Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the south-afrifur podcast. You're listening to myself, Ivik Wolf, and sitting all the way in North Dakota is Tempo Okun,
Hello, everyone.
and in Cape Town, or based in Cape Town, is Scratch.
Yo,
Yo.
I'm still here.
All right,
That's
so
how they say hello in Cape Town. That's the traditional.
Actually, that's
Greeting.
away.
Actually, or it's either it's away or it's
An expletive.
what do you call it? Yes, away musket.
Away, massacres.
Which means greetings, mother's children.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's nice. That's nice that you greet them by saying, "I know that I recognize that you also have a mom."
Essentially.
Yeah, this is true. All right,
See,
so
I enjoy. I want to take this moment to enjoy that we have a special shared English that we all speak to each other.
mhm.
Whereas in my local community, our equivalent of that would be "Oh, hi," or something equally embarrassing.
Mhm.
It's like we're a state filled with Labrador retrievers.
That's
Speaking of Labrador retrievers,
Yeah.
have you watched BoJack Horseman recently?
I have not, but I watched the Canadian government's knockoff of it.
really. There's a Canadian knockoff version.
Oh yeah, it's about consent. Let me find it for you. It's being played in theaters before Doctor Strange.
Interesting. Why?
In
Why in
fact, too
front of,
strange for me to make up.
why in
Welcome
front
to
of
Canada.
Doctor Strange specifically?
Oh, that's just whatever movie is playing at the time.
Okay.
But yeah,
Okay.
here we go, everyone. Actually, can I get a link to the stream?
Yeah, I'm already there. Da-da-da-da-da-da. You're gonna have that one, and then this one.
Doctor Strange is a pretty good movie.
Both of them.
I have
haven't
heard
watched
it
it
is a
yet.
good movie. I want to go to it. I am sure that my significant otter will make sure we go to it.
Though.
You did not just do that.
No. I think you did.
She is. She is an otter of great significance to me. Okay, so that is I've just put in the chat the what appears to me to be a clear BoJack Horseman ripoff.
Oh, that is totally it. Mm-hmm. Large amounts of bees.
Right, it's got a little bit of regular show maybe in there because it's not all old people.
Mm-hmm. This is pretty much what happens at BoJack Horseman's house parties at the age of 20.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm into this Puffin. He's got a cute design. And he's got all kinds of cool ideas about consent and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's because it's the birds and the bees.
Yeah.
I get it now.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Just thought I'd point that out to
Right,
myself
so-
for no good reason.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. You
I
also
also
pointed
kinda-
it out to me. I was kind of worried as to what was going on there.
I also kind of like that giant eagle lady. I'd let her cradle me like a loaf of bread. She's gigantic.
I'll watch this when I'm done. I'll watch it when the stream.
Oh no, watch it now so you have context for our babblings.
Alright, fine.
It's not fair. It's seriously a minute long.
Alright.
Where do?
Okay, back in a tick. Go ahead.
Oh my god. There's already a terrible pun in there.
Oh yeah, there are so many. There's background gags and things.
Yeah.
Then there is a new trend in public service announcements, at least in North America, where you try to make them funny, but in a way that is there are levels to it that you won't notice right away. So I was flying, I think it was on United Airlines, and their in-flight wear your seatbelt video has a whole bunch of weird, secret stuff in the background, like a guy running around in a gorilla suit, or a dude dressed as a knight, or like, you know, just all sorts of weird things. Like they launch something with a catapult in one scene, and then another thing, then that thing they launch flies past in the next. And like,
Buzz off. This isn't a mating dance.
yeah, like it's just so that you keep noticing new things in it.
You chill.
And that is the new
You
trend
chill.
in
And keep your
public
hands off her
safety
tail
announcements.
feathers.
Wow, that's lost me just a little bit.
Oh. What, the video, or am I talking?
That kind of stuff that's happening.
Oh, so anyway, another good like linguistic thing about my part of the world.
Mm-hmm.
I tweeted this, I think, yesterday, but like you guys call it a hoodie, right? Like a sweatshirt with a hood on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do call it a hoodie.
In like the prairie states of like the northern plains of North Dakota and like
Planes.
up into and like especially in like Saskatchewan and Manitoba, like
Yeah.
that is called a bunny hug.
What?
Excuse me.
Like a bunny has hugged you.
That is adorable.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
In particular, it seems to be one that's like doesn't have a zipper, so it's all just soft. Like, oh, it's like a bunny hugging you. It's a bunny
Aw.
hug.
Okay.
Yeah, they also like they call. However, like I've heard that a few times, but I've not heard took ever for instead of a hobbit. Like that's what we would call like peregrine took in Lord of the Rings, but they call it that for like a beanie hat, like a
Yeah.
small
Yeah.
hat.
It's like a beanie hat
Yeah.
that has like the flaps on the side, I think.
Yeah. So
Is that still relevant these days? Or?
And it's spelled differently
hat?
as well.
well, people still wear hats sometimes.
No, but I mean like that specific hat.
It's cold.
I don't know. Like, are you talking about the hat that Jane and Firefly wore?
Let me
Yeah.
check.
Like, you see
No,
those.
it's definitely that hat. Yeah.
You see those.
Mhm.
I don't know if
That's
a toque.
too.
Yes, that's
I don't know if a toque. Yeah, I don't know if a toque like specifically needs ear flaps. I'm not sure. But here we would just call it a beanie.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's also spelled it differently. It's like, I think it's like spelled like a torque without. Yeah, it's spelled like torque without the R.
Oh, I know. Like, so one of my projects I'm currently working on is written in Canadian English because it takes place in Canada. And the easy part was switching over my dictionary in my writing software in Scrivener to Canadian, because you can do it in Scrivener. You can just do it on a per document basis.
Mm-hmm.
But like, the tough part has been like using all of these like slightly different Canadian words. Like they use a lot more French words than we do,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's just like I can't spell French words on the best of days. Like I always want to like the denouement of a story. I'm always like a denouement.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, y'all got to write that denouement. Like
And there was one other thing I wanted to say about. And do they use like the British spelling as well, like color OU or stuff
Oh,
like
yeah.
that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I figured as much.
oh yeah,
Allow.
and like actually, since we're talking about Rusty, Rusty the Royal Rocket Dog,
Mm-hmm.
we'll post a not safe for work image into the chat.
Yeah,
Uh,
that one
okay.
you can do it on fur.fm. No.
for stream, yes,
but here
for
it's
the
fine.
thing, no.
So, but they anyway. Yeah, I put it in the stream. I didn't. So anyway, the like that like how do you guys say like a little entryway space? Do you say foyer or do you say foyer?
Foyer.
Foyer.
Okay, we say we
You say
foyer.
foyer. Doge
Oh.
says foyer.
Oh, fancy. He's
He
always
just
been a
did the
fancy
gay
man.
hand thing.
Yeah.
I call it the space next to
So
the
anyway,
fridge.
So like I've been working with a bunch of the Canadian furries on that for that. I've written another story for it, which is the one I posted on FA. It may also end up in that Canadian anthology we talked about a couple times ago.
Mm-hmm.
I talked about a couple times ago.
Mhm.
And it's all about this. It's all about this growing up in Manitoba, or as we say it, Manitoba, and it's by Saskatchewan, don't you know? And she has this dog, yeah, and he's got a rocket pack, and
A rocket pack,
oh
don't
yeah,
you know? Sorry,
it's a jetpack technically,
okay.
but yeah, like, anyway, and he's a talking dog. It's exciting, and it's all like a metaphor for disenfranchised people. Like, it's just like an easy way to show like people are treating you as less than a human, even though you are fully capable of like talking to them or whatever. And it can be a stand-in for having a disability or being a minority or being a woman or being gay or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, because what was interesting is during World War II, in like the intelligence community, and especially in like Britain, where they were kind of desperate, they like didn't really care if you were gay. Like, they were so desperate that that was like one of the first times they'd just be like, you know what, we don't even care. And so they had agents who were like openly bragging about their like sexual conquests in like meetings,
Nice.
like in SOE and in MI5, like, and that was the beginning of that was like one of the first cracks in the wall, because even though like after the war it became taboo to say things like that again, people remembered that, oh well, so and so said that, and like there is no putting the genie back in the bottle. And so we have like a couple gay characters in the story that are like, one of them is like higher up who's trying not to like have his personal life get out that he's gay, because it would be it would impede him doing his job in this intelligence community. And then another one who's just an agent who's basically a gay James Bond, because it's based on a real dude. I'd have to find you his name, but
Sassy.
Oh, God. I got some peanut gallery stuff here. James Bond.
James Bond. That sounds like he plays games though.
Yeah. I'm calling him 00 Sassy.
James what? James Bound.
Oh.
Maybe.
So anyway, there's that going, and then so that's going to be in an anthology called True North. That'll be out on ebook and out in paperback here in North America. But and I know that I want to thank your listeners who have been buying my ebooks, because Amazon breaks it down by country. And so it's cool to see that happening. Like, it's actually really neat to be like, oh, okay, like people in South Africa are buying my book now.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And so then
I eventually want to buy too.
So I'm also sitting here staring at a shipment of games and books that is ready to go, but
Yeah, we were waiting on you.
the lacking of 2 copies of Windfall.
There it is.
And so I'm waiting for Planet to send it. They were supposed to send it like a month ago. But just in case, you guys think that other countries, everything just works super fast. Especially in the furry community. Like, don't get me wrong, I love the furry community, but there's a lot of like people doing stuff as like a hobby.
Yeah.
And like they're like, oh yeah, well I got a job, I've got this, I'll come back and do it. And then like it kind of just, the cumulative effect of that is that everything takes a super long time. But so for those of you wondering why Lackadaisy is in the chat stream,
I did put that there. Yes, I did.
There you did. If you guys remember the Nordgard card game, I am making a Lackadaisy game based on the same rules set, and it is, even though you don't go just from point A to point B, you go around the board gathering booze, which you then deposit at your speakeasy. It is so compatible with Nordgard that it is designed to be shuffled together and played together with it.
Awesome.
How do you manage that?
Well,
booze run as well as gun run?
you would have to pick one or the other. Are you going to play a game of Nordgard where you run across the map, or are you going to play a game of which has a time limit, or are you going to play a game of Lackadaisy where you have to keep like feeding booze into the Lackadaisy speakeasy to keep the game running, and then you have you have the good stuff, which is like actually good alcohol, and then like you need to get like 2 of those per player is the current design to make that to win the game. And so but it has the same mechanics. It's got all the same like, you know, combat system and whatever. It just has different item. All the items are different. All of the characters are from the Lackadaisy comic. If you guys haven't read it, it's super great. Like I recommend.
I have actually read it. It's absolutely amazing. There's nothing better than a pyromaniac cat.
Right. Can we find that particular comic, that particular page? Let's put that in the chat. But how this happened was I was my fiance had read Lackadaisy for years, and like long before she met me, and she has been running since like 2008 or something. And she said, "Oh well, you should get Lackadaisy. You should get permission to use Lackadaisy for the Nordgard game, because it's similar. Furries like both of those things, you know. So it'll be great." And I eventually managed to get a hold of Tracy Butler at Anthrocon when we were both there, and so we had a conversation there, and I've spent a lot more hours than I want to think about working on contract stuff, but you know, we finally figured it out, negotiated it with her agent. Her agent actually also does things like if you guys have ever been on Equestria Daily, and you see the thing for the advertisement on the side for the plushes that are like official Hasbro plushes, they're made by Fourth Dimension Entertainment. That's the company her agent runs.
Oh wow!
No shit.
Yeah. So like the Hasbro plushes that are like, you know, the size of a cat, those are all from her agent. Not the little teeny ones. Like those are a different distributor in a different manufacturer. But yeah. And so yeah, there you go. So there's our in the chat, the pyromaniacal feline. Anyway, and so yeah, he was like, "Oh yeah, sorry, I was late for this meeting I said I would have with you. There, you know, I was in a meeting with Nickelodeon." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." And he's like, "Yeah, we secured the rights to their entire like back catalog for, you know, all their old Nicktoons for making keychains and figurines." You know, he's like, "Is there anything you can think of that you'd want?" And I'm like, "Well, I don't, you know, like I'm thinking of what furries would want." And I'm like, "I think you need to get like Angry Beavers like bottle opener set." So like, you know, like Norbert opens it, or one of them opens it with his tail, like the cool one opens it with his tail, and Norbert uses his tail, and Dag opens them with his teeth. And I'm like, there, because then you can have like a really maniacal expression on Dag.
Well, not to mention the fact that there should be like a little button for like a sound. Like,
Right. And then like, what else did I recommend to him? Oh
Cat
yeah,
dog.
I was like, cat dog.
Yes.
I told him that I have always thought cat dog would make a really good boomerang.
Either a boomerang or a scarf.
Yeah, it's good.
Oh yeah, cat dog scarf.
And then,
pretty kick-ass.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. And then I told him, did you guys ever see my life as a teenage robot?
Yes.
I was like, dude, you know, there are all those characters they make into like USB drives. I'm like, you know, this is the first one that actually makes sense. Like, that's pretty much how her body works. She just like comes apart and like plugs into things.
Mm.
Yeah, makes
And
sense.
so I'm like, oh yeah, just have like her head come off and you plug in the USB drive. And he's like, oh wow, okay. But
Ideas aplenty.
yeah. And so,
Or an actual Hey Arnold
mean,
football.
oh yeah, no,
Yeah.
we talked about that.
Hey
I was
Arnold
like, gonna make an Hey Arnold football, and he's like, that's too on the nose.
Damn.
an Oblina walking stick.
Yeah, like I was thinking about a Crumb contact lens holder
Oh,
Yes.
yes. That would be cool.
because you're putting your eyes there in a way.
Yeah.
Mhm.
No, I'm totally following.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Ooh, and what's it? What else was there?
Of the old
Jeez.
Nicktoons.
Oh, right. Was it? Which one was the Nickelodeon one? Two Stupid Dogs. Yeah, it was Two Stupid Dogs,
No, it wasn't Nick.
wasn't it?
No.
Was that one Cartoon Network?
Yeah.
that might have been Cartoon Network because they were swearing on it.
Yeah.
Oh yes, that would mean that Ren and Stimpy was the
Ren and
Ren and
Stimpy.
Stimpy was on Nickelodeon.
And
Yeah,
then
Ren and
eventually,
Stimpy was the.
and they eventually made its way into Adult Swim, I think.
Yeah, but then it just got worse. Like if it was bad before, it got worse after it went onto Adult Swim. They were just like, cool. You know what? We don't even have any more limits. Let's just see
Yeah.
how far we can push.
Yeah, it
this.
became Ren and Stimpy's
Right.
adult party cartoon.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I used to play the video game.
What else?
I
there's-
also.
Sorry, continue.
Go ahead.
I'll shut up now. I'll shut up.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, so yeah, and I even gave him some like realistic suggestions. Like, there are no Invader Zim like 3D plastic phone charms, and those characters have such big heads and simple designs that you could make phone charms out of them,
Yeah.
and people would. If you made them, they would be at our table at a convention. Like someone would have them within like a month.
Totally.
Because people still love Invader Zim so much.
And Rocko's Modern Life you can also dig into.
Oh right.
Yeah. What could we do with Rocko's Modern Life?
Well, have the shirt, but I think that might be a bit reaching too far.
Yeah, no. I would see the shirt. You could wear the shirt, and it would be like a secret handshake
Yeah.
between you and people who'd watched Rocko's Modern Life, because other people would be like, "Oh, that's just kind of a shirt," and that's kind of like a '90s or '80s shirt, and you'd be like, but anyone who like was in the know would be
Yeah.
like, "Oh."
Yeah. And also just for shits and giggles, Rocko's Modern Life laundry hamper.
Ooh.
Because as we know, laundry
Yeah,
day is a very dangerous day.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
And you can make a fruit bowl from. Man, how is that? I've forgotten his fucking name.
What are you talking about?
Heifer,
No, I know Heifer.
Bunky,
The
Mr.
turtle.
Bighead. Oh, yeah, turtle was terrible.
Yeah. So in other words, you make a fruit bowl from that, and like you can.
Oh, the
sort of
turtle. The
sway-
turtle. I remembered his name. It's Woody Allen.
Fair enough. Okay, but yeah, like you make the fruit bowl, and pretty much like every single time I think it moves around, all you hear is "I'm nauseous, I'm nauseous, I'm
Oh
nauseous."
no, he's so bad.
Um,
Like I've been trying really hard to get a friend to stop quoting that character because he does the voice spot on. I'm like, you just stop. It's been like 15 years. You just stop quoting that terrible character.
Mm.
Because he's always just like, you turn the page, you wash your hands, and I'm
Yeah.
like, stop it.
That's funny. What else?
But yeah,
you were-
that's definitely you're right about Woody Allen though.
Oh yeah, no, he's totally supposed to be Woody Allen. Like, cause he's kind of neurotic, and he's kind of got a
I'm not-
nasally voice, and he sounds like he's from New York,
Mm.
and like that's just it's supposed to be Woody Allen, and he has big glasses. No, Rocco was the only thing keeping me watching Rocco's Modern Life.
Mm.
Like,
Like
just
the,
how
the
it's
straight
a-
man in a shitty situation.
right? I was just like, oh, Rocco, and he's like cute, and he wants reasonable things, and he lives in this mad world.
Yeah.
I've actually been watching a lot of Gumball lately, like Amazing World of
Oh, God.
Gumball.
Isn't that
Like,
fucked
do you
up?
guys have?
That show's fucked up, right?
Visually, it's very weird.
That's just fucked
But
up.
like, what makes you say this?
I literally I saw one episode and it was the one where he was petting this like sort of demonic looking cat that had like these hollow eyes
Was
and
that
like
the
really
only
round
episode
circular
you
mouth.
watched?
That and like, another one where he was talking to this massive mermaid that somehow just turned into like this sort of shriveled up zombie version of herself. So the 2 times that I did
Oh.
watch the show, it was messed up as hell.
Oh yeah, no, I watched the one where
No. It is Gumball, or is it?
I watched the
Oh,
one
no, wait,
recently where,
I'm thinking of
Flapjack. It's
Yeah, I'm
Flapjack.
thinking of
You're thinking of
Flapjack.
Flapjack.
Apologies, I'm thinking of Flapjack.
which I have never seen, but I understand the confusion because that's why I haven't watched Gumball for the 4 years or 5 years it's been out, is because I thought it was Flapjack,
Yeah,
and I had seen some Flapjack and was like, oh, what the hell?
yeah, this
But
is weird.
so
Yeah.
no, Gumball, like,
Yeah, Gumball, I can see
basically
in my
like-
mind's eye now, yeah.
yeah, it's the one where the blue cat and the pink bunny and the
Yeah.
orange
Very
fish
cutesy
and-
animation.
Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, everything's different. Like there's 3D in it, there's paper animation, there's live action in it, there's
Mhm.
cartoon. Yeah. Anyway, so I've been watching it, and like I don't really care for the first couple seasons as much because they didn't really nail down what the characters are supposed to be like. For example, like in the later seasons, like okay, here's a confession for you guys. I actually watch non-linear television in reverse. So like a show like Bob's Burgers,
Mm-hmm.
I watched that show in reverse
Okay.
because I watched the newest episode one time and I went, that's pretty good. And then I just watched backwards in it and the level of quality dropped, but I was committed by that point.
Yeah. I understand.
And so I just kept going. And so, and it was easy to remember because I was just like, oh, well, that's the one I last watched. I just watched the one before that. And so, but like in Gumball, the main character, the cat boy, is like, in the later seasons, he's like a well-meaning, but like kind of he's kind of like too rambunctious. It's like he's smart, but he won't apply it. It's like Calvin and Hobbes.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mhm.
he's smart, but he won't apply himself, and he's ambitious but rubbish, and so and then his like adopted brother, the fish, is like the good kid, like a typical conversation with them at about like 2 or 3 minutes into an episode is, we should totally tell mom about this, says Darwin the fish, and Gumball the cat is like, oh no, well how bad could it really get? And then we smash cut to it being like 10 times worse.
Oh.
And that's fun. Like having that dynamic for even just those two characters is really useful for storytelling purposes, because then it's kind of like on The Simpsons, like Bart and Lisa, how each of them is going to react, and they can have like complexity within that, but one of them is still the good kid and one of them is still the troublemaker, and then like, oh, their little sister is like a savant, like she's like 4 years old, but she's a year ahead of them in middle school, like but that's partly because the show's bizarre, but like she is always like very like super smart but has trouble like interacting socially, like she doesn't quite get it yet, and so like the T-Rex is afraid of her and things like, but yeah, no, it's a cute show. Like it's nice that the characters care about each other. Like the thing I liked about like The Simpsons or Bob's Burgers or something is that the characters actually like care about one another.
Mm.
Like, because in a lot of sitcoms, you'd say things in a sitcom that you'd never say in real life. Like
Mhm.
that would end your friendship immediately.
Yeah.
Like, and so that's part of what I don't like about like Family Guy. Like I'm like, oh, or even BoJack. I have really mixed feelings about BoJack Horseman, because like I find it to be it's well made, but it
Mhm.
follows the same formula for every episode. Because it's like BoJack is presented with a problem. BoJack seems for a little while like he's going to make one of the less bad choices, and then he makes the worst possible choice.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But
But
it's
sometimes
not all
Mr.
that.
Peanut Butter shows up, and so that makes it okay.
It's not
I'm
all
really
that.
only in that show for Mr. Peanut Butter.
I'm in that show for BoJack. I identify with BoJack on
Oh,
several different
because you're a
levels.
you're like a washed-up celebrity.
I'm not a washed-up celebrity. If I was a celebrity, that would be different. But the thing is that there are things that he does that I have tendencies to do sometimes, like make terrifyingly bad choices
Mm-hmm.
and drinking
Mm-hmm.
heavily,
Mm-hmm.
like,
Like,
except for the drugs part.
right. Don't start on that one. Just to be more like BoJack. Like, try to be less
Well,
like BoJack.
well, BoJack has a kindish heart at times.
He does. Well, that's the thing. Like, that's what keeps you watching. Because if BoJack was a monster, you wouldn't watch the show.
Hmm.
But because BoJack's like trying to, like, he sees himself as the hero of his own story,
Mhm.
Yeah.
even though he's causing so many of the problems.
Mhm.
Do you guys ever watch Avatar: The Last Airbender?
Yup.
Yeah.
Okay. Remember the line, "You will live a life of much suffering, most of it self-inflicted,"
I do.
that the fortune teller tells Sokka?
Yeah.
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 Like, that's how I feel about that and a lot of other people making bad choices in their lives. I'm just like, you're gonna lean, like, people who are like super unhappy and then keep making bad choices. I'm like, you will lead a life of much suffering, most of it self-inflicted. Like, I have
Yeah.
I have a friend who, you know, um, like, quit his job because he got mad at his boss to punish his boss, and now he's upset that he doesn't have a job.
Lol. That's cutting your nose to spite your face right there.
Yeah. Oh,
Well,
okay.
you just the better idea would just be to find a better job
First.
I
and then
know.
move on there
And then quit.
First.
Yeah.
and then quit and then rub it in your boss's face.
Right. Be like, I have a better job. Bye.
Yeah.
Like, that would be different. But yeah. Anyway. So speaking of bad choices,
Yeah.
you guys might have heard that we had an election.
Ugh.
Oh.
Really? I didn't notice.
And
Cut. Well, jeez, I don't know. Like, I always thought that Donald Trump was a very reasonable man.
oh yeah, totally. You don't have to say such things. You don't live here. But, like, here's the deal.
Shut down.
So anyway, here's the deal. Like, previously on south-afrifurs, I had said it was very unlikely he would win.
Yes, you did.
And you will notice if you go back to the tapes, I never said he wouldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough.
Every single time you asked me, I said explicitly it is very unlikely. And that is the trouble with probabilities. Sometimes you end up in this particular timeline.
The darkest timeline.
But, like,
In other particular timelines, Bernie Sanders just won the election, and that was amazing.
Well, here's the thing. Like, I love Bernie. I would have totally voted for Bernie. Bernie didn't have Bernie didn't have the organization he needed to and stuff to win. Like, he wasn't part of the party before he like jumped in. And so, yeah, and like Trump would have torn him apart too in an election. Like, Trump was running anti-Semitic ads by the end. So, like, I don't think that just because he's a white guy, Trump would have said, "Oh well, I can't say anything." Like,
well, I
he
mean,
would
he
have,
already took out Chris Christie, John Kasich,
right.
Everybody who had
So,
not that there was anything. There was a lot wrong with those people then in the first place.
oh yeah, no. But, like, the thing is, for the people who have been, like, mostly paying attention since Bush left and we got Obama, which has been like a night and day difference. And I understand that that's been, like, and I work at a college, and so, like, a lot of the students were very upset because since they were 10 years old, they've had Obama.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, not to sound like I'm super old to you, but
you,
like
in
for
comparison.
the last like few election cycles, it's been 8, like we have one president of a party and then we swing back to the other one and then back and forth for
Mhm.
1 or 2 terms, and that's been the cycle. And so there was already like a significant uphill climb for Hillary or Bernie. They were not favored from the beginning to get control of the legislature. Like that was only like toward the end they started saying, "Oh, well, they'll probably claim the legislature." But like at the same time, like this is part of the reason I tell people that conspiracy theories are actually harmful, because conspiracy theories are what put Trump in the White House. Because if everyone had just said that's bullshit, I don't believe you unless you have evidence about Hillary's emails, for example, she would have won. You know, if
You reckon?
if people had valued evidence and said, "Oh boy, it seems really,
Highly
important
improbable.
that we get."
Oh, sorry.
Huh?
No, sorry. Go ahead. It seems very important that.
No, I mean it's highly okay. I understand that you're saying it's highly improbable that like people would stop believing in conspiracy theories, or what?
No, I mean, what I was gonna say is that if looking at a conspiracy theory like this is highly improbable, where's the evidence
Oh
coming
yeah,
from?
no, right, exactly. Be critical. You don't have to be cynical, but be critical, because like that's what put Trump in the White House, was a bunch of people online saying, "Oh, well, I read in an internet comment section somewhere else that Hillary is a criminal, or that she assassinated someone, or that she cheated on her husband, or that she encouraged her husband to cheat on her." Like, and like I'm like, well, but none of those make any sense. Like those are just ways of saying I am uncomfortable with a woman being president. Like, people had said, like, oh, there were conspiracies that said, oh, she's a cyborg, was one of them, because they saw her mic pack on during the debate, and
She's
they're like,
also she's lizard people.
she's lizard people, yeah, like all those, and like people talk about conspiracy theories like they're a hobby, like, oh, how silly, like, isn't this, but like when you don't shut down people who like them, like who spread them, people
Yeah.
who are not as like scientifically minded will just internalize them, because they'll be like, oh,
Yeah.
it was in the atmosphere, everyone was saying it, and so I just believed it.
Mm.
And so I have perfectly reasonable friends who are perfectly reasonable in other ways, who just go, well, of course the moon landing was fake. I'm like, oh, okay. Why do you feel that way? Well, because, and then
Everybody's saying it.
everyone's saying it. And I'm like, or like vaccines. Vaccines are dangerous. I'm like,
Fuck 'em.
are they? Or do you just say that because that's the zeitgeist of 4chan right now?
Yeah. Yeah. See.
And
Yeah, with the vaccine stuff. Sorry to like interrupt you. With the vaccine stuff, what
yeah,
you're saying like rings true, because that was like actually a clear and present threat to public safety, public health.
the diseases?
No, the vaccine denialism.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Oh yeah. Like, and honestly, like I understand, like, okay. I have sympathy for people who don't understand vaccines and are scared of them. Like, if there was, because you're basically saying, like, you are going to put this thing in your body that will keep you safe from this invisible, largely abstract danger. It's not like you're giving someone an anti-tiger vaccine. Like, we wouldn't have this conversation then. People would be like, oh shit, no, give me 2 of them.
Mhm.
Like, I don't want any tigers. Like, but like, because it's hard for people to understand threats that they can't quantify like that. Like, and so I understand it. It's still really stupid. Like, it's still really dangerous, because, and it's that kind of thinking that led to this.
Mm.
And I have there's all the other thing that really screwed this over was on election day, the like majority of Americans didn't vote. Like
Yeah.
most eligible voters, like 53%, did not vote. And then so Trump won, not with 100% of the electorate, not with 50%, not even with 40%. Guess how much he won with?
I think the number was 18%.
18%. So fewer than 1 in 5 people want Trump to be president.
Yep.
But because those are the people who voted.
But it's
Like,
because this is the exact same thing that happened at Brexit. This is the reason why they call it Brexit 2.0, is because it's a whole bunch of disaffected people who really don't actually want to vote in the first place because they think that their vote is useless. And at the end of the day, you're kind of sitting there going like, seriously, guys, your vote is not useless. This wouldn't have happened if you had voted. You freaking retards.
I know, and like I posted as much political stuff encouraging people to vote as I reasonably thought I could on my FA and Twitter and stuff because I try not to make it just a soapbox because that's not why people are there.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I said, as elegantly as I could, I just said like, guys, this is really important. Like we can't just not have, you can't, if you do not vote, you are surrendering your power to someone else. You should vote. And like, I encourage you guys to vote. Like, do not surrender your power to other people. Like, there's also let me find it. There's also a map of like how people 18 to 25 voted, like people who actually showed up at the polls. 18 to 25-year-olds voted in the U.S. Hillary Clinton won
by a landslide.
Just no, a beyond landslide. 500 to like 30. Like think about that. Like 500 electoral votes to 30 was how it went down with 18 to 25-year-olds. And it's not just that group. Like it is that entire like wave of people coming up, like have like Gen Xers and whatever. They are more liberal and they're staying more liberal. Like there's this fallacy in the US that like when you're old you become conservative, but really it's just a like the march of progress. Like people who were liberal, who were considered liberal for wanting like women's voting rights, would probably be not considered that radical today as they were in their day. And so but here's the thing, like, and I see in the comments we got like someone saying like, Hillary was just as bad. That is how Trump won. Like Hillary, if you guys noticed when they leaked the transcripts and emails of Hillary, it's not like the ones that the Russians like hadn't altered showed that she was as liberal as Bernie Sanders, if not more.
Yeah.
So congratulations, Internet, for character assassinating someone more liberal than Bernie Sanders so that we couldn't have her. Like, I'm trying really hard not to be cynical, but like, thank you, Internet, because I know it's emotionally safer to be like, well, she's bad, everyone's bad except, the guy I want. No. Like, come on. Clinton, no matter what else you think about Clinton, like, they've never found any evidence of a crime. They've been investigating her for like 30 years as a political witch hunt. They've never found any dirt on her. And like she's very smart. Like, for example, energy policy. Like, I personally don't think that like drilling for more oil is a good plan. But she said, the reason I support drilling for more oil is I want to bankrupt Vladimir Putin personally. She's like, the day that we crush him, we will stop drilling for oil because I want to flood the market in Europe. And because like Europe gets like 60% of its oil from Russia. And she's like,
Yeah.
She's like, the day we do that, we'll shut off all the rigs. Because that was her thing. She was like, that's how that regime stays in power, is money. They federalized their oil production, and the parts that are independent of that like are also closely tied to the rulers. So like they just make all their money that way. Like Russia doesn't have great infrastructure. Russia doesn't have the highest education levels in the world. Like they're making their money on oil. And so I have limited sympathy for people who say like Hillary was just as bad, because all that does is get people not to vote. Like when people say like, oh well, all politicians are exactly the same. I'm like, no, like that's just a thing you say to get people to not vote, because when the people vote, they generally like when we have high turnout, people make good choices. Like in my state, we legalized medical marijuana for and like it was just a referendum, and so now it's legal, and like we had a victims' rights law passed that says anytime anything happens with a victim, like with a victim's attacker, like if that attacker gets out of jail, you have to track down and notify the victim. You can't just do a best effort, which was what was required before. Like you had to try. That's now part of our state constitution. Like that's a law that governs other laws now. And so
that's pretty good.
Yeah, like stuff like that. Like it's like a bunch of states passed minimum wage increases, things like that.
$15 was it?
Was a lot of them, yeah, were $15 an hour. And like the average wage, for context, in the US is $16.50 per hour. That includes every millionaire, every, professional sports player, everyone. And so, and like $16 an hour is 15 or $16 an hour is like, when you factor in expenses here, is like a moderately comfortable living. Like you're not like living in opulence. You can't like go and buy a new car every year, but you will be fine. No one.
You can afford the occasional video game.
Yeah, exactly. Like you can play video games, you can go to college, you can buy a house. If you are really, really careful, you can buy a house. But like $70,000 a year, it's like $16,000 or $15,000 a year is like something like $30,000 a year. $15 an hour is like something like $30,000 a year, 25, 30, something like that. And you can,
like what, 15,000 less than teachers make.
Teachers don't make 45,000.
Exactly, but I mean, like the thing is that as far as I remember, I've seen a couple of posts that side. I've been looking. Like 42 is sort of an average in certain states, depending on which state you're.
Oh yeah, so like depending on where you live, yeah, but like, and overall though, it's like something like $16.50 is the average for what people make, and that's reasonable. Like you can't like raise a family on that, but you can like be a single person. And so when people are like, oh, these millennials, they're ruining everything. They aren't having kids, and they aren't getting married, and they aren't buying homes, and they're ruining everything. Like, well, it's because they don't have any money. Like when you don't have money, you're like, whoa, I can't afford to have kids. I'm gonna wait on that. Yeah. Like that's what reasonable people do when they don't have money. And so that's something that needs to happen eventually too. But like, here's why I have hope. Because it's easy to just sit around and be like, oh, we're all screwed, but that doesn't actually change anything. So one of the eternal frustrations of the American political system is that the laws were designed, like the electoral laws were designed hundreds of years ago by pretty smart guys, but only working with like the technology and like philosophies they had at the time. And so for example, the Electoral College, Trump lost the popular vote.
Mm.
Like fewer people voted for Trump. Like 200,000 people more voted for Hillary than Trump.
It was a lot
And
more than that.
something it was some. That's when I turned off the TV. Like I had to stop watching. But like yeah, it was something like that. Like just many more people voted for Hillary than Trump. But like because of how it's laid out, it's each state gets a certain number of votes. Now, those are apportioned during census years, which is like every 10 years. So 2010 was one, 2020 will be one. And you might notice that if you're an observer of United States politics, 2008 to 2009 was pretty solid. Like Obama was getting stuff passed. Like that's when we passed Obamacare. Like we passed all sorts of stuff. We were doing great. Then 2010, everything kind of went to shit, and he couldn't pass very much else, and he had to just do everything else by executive order, which means that he can only change how laws are enforced, not what is written in the law. So, and then since if Hillary or Bernie or whoever had won this election, they would have been sitting in the White House, and 4 years would have gone by of Republicans continuing to not let them do anything. And then it would have been 2020, and we would go, okay, let's all go vote, and then we will get to change how the districts are set up if you're the winner, and we'll have to, change around how many votes different places get based on population again, and whatever. And the party that is not in power during a time like that has a tremendous advantage, because it means that you can go, we are going to flood this with money where, everyone is resentful of the person in power. Because like that's another thing that you may have noticed about America is that we always resent whoever is in power. Hence, thanks Obama.
Yeah.
Like everything is everything. Like the price of gas. Thanks, Obama. Like, he doesn't have anything to do with the price of gas. Like,
but then again, like the way that it's determined is very, very silly to begin with.
Right, but still,
it's all just investor power, and at the end of the day, like that's the one thing that like annoys me the most is that cool, investor power of everything.
What of gas or what?
Yeah, I mean, like the thing is that when somebody does something stupid, gas prices go up. That's definitely not Obama's fault a lot of the time, unless Trump wins.
Yeah. So anyway, like that's what gives me hope is that like, and maybe now all of these people who were like, I don't want to get emotionally involved. I'm not political. I don't want to get involved. They're both bad. Well, or I'm just going to buy into these. Everyone's saying they're both bad, so I'm just going to stay home. How bad could it be? Maybe now those people will vote. Like,
yeah, maybe it was necessary.
Because that's kind of what happened with Bush. Like, the Republicans, whenever they get in power, they really fuck it up. Like, that's how we get recessions in this country. That's how we crash our economy in this country. It's always the Republicans fucking it up. And so that'll make people angry. And I'm not saying this is like, oh, well, it'll be, like, whoop-de-doo, whatever. No, I'm saying, like, this is going to be really awful. But, the game is not over yet. We can figure this out. And in the long term, I hope that, my country learns that it is, like, a part of the world. As opposed to...
Of it.
Yeah, like, because that's part of what the problem is here is that, people like Trump come in and say, well, I'll make America great again. Well, like, fuck you. Like, it's a country. Like, the idea of a country is kind of outdated in our world anyway. Like, what does that really get you? Like, I understand the idea of like an administrative district. Like that's reasonable. Like you have to break things down. But like the idea that like administrative districts can go to war with one another and that's okay. Like imagine in your country, like if one of your administrative districts was just like, oh, we're going to war with this other one, and then the government was just like, okay, seems fine. It's your call. they'd never do that. Your government would step in and be like, no, you can't just go.
Well,
Yeah, we have very little faith at this point.
But still, like, it would be in their best interests
Yeah, no, I
to
get what you're
stop
saying.
that.
Yeah.
And so,
no,
but
go.
anyway, so that is a thing I would point out, is that next time you feel like, oh, hey, well, I'll just indulge in this, conspiracy theory. I will just indulge in spreading a funny meme that says, ah ha ha, making fun of, I don't know, whatever it is, social justice warriors or whatever, like, oh ha ha ha, black people or whatever. Like, anytime that you feel like spreading a meme or, posting a comment or making a joke about, like, something like that, think about what that does. Like, even if you're not internalizing it and you're not absorbing it, think about what that's doing to the atmosphere of how people talk. Because, like, yes, I totally admit that there are totally people who are, like, overly sensitive social justice warriors. Yeah, fine. But, like, that doesn't mean the things that they want are, like, that they say they stand for are bad. Like, women's equality or trans equality or whatever. Like, it doesn't mean those things are bad. Like, it just means that there are stupid people who also want them. And it is always more frustrating to have a stupid person who agrees with you than a smart person who disagrees.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, and like, so if you guys are feeling disgusted like I am, I recommend that you fight this by being kind to others, by making places like the furry fandom welcoming, because that's what a lot of people like seek out. Like, that's where a lot of people like find themselves and become like more comfortable with themselves. Like, I was talking to a publisher in the fandom here, and I was like, you guys, I just want to take this moment to be like, you put out books, like, you put books in the hands of people who are questioning whether or not it's okay to be themselves. And then they open it up and they see, oh, I can be, a 6-foot-tall pink wolf. I guess I can be whatever the hell I want.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so, like, and I'm like, that is not something that could have happened at previous points in history. Like, there's no going back. There's no putting the genie back in the bottle, because a generation of people have grown up thinking it's okay to be LGBT. It's okay to be black. It's okay to be a woman. Like, I don't have to. And it's okay to be whatever other minority or group like that. Like, it's okay to be disabled. Like, I don't have to. I am not less than anybody else. I don't have to avert my eyes or, fear that some other person is, gonna command me around just because of the color of their skin or something. So, like, a generation has grown up like that, and that's new. Like, that's not happened before, and that's partly because of the internet. Like, when you're on the internet, you meet people from all over. You talk to crazy people from North Dakota. Like, and you see that people have more in common than they do dividing them. And so, like, there is no way for Trump and Putin and people like that to turn back time. Like, that's why the Russian economy is like faltering, and the people are always, like, there are people, there's a whole culture of resistance there, and like, no one wants to move there, and no great ideas are coming out of there. Like,
And everyone's there
and like, even
looks
people I
perpetually
know,
pissed off.
yeah, like, why do you think he's so unhappy? Yeah. Like, I mean, shit, have you seen Trump the last week? Have you seen photos of him? Like,
most people have actually thought that it was just like a practical joke gone wrong, and even he's sort of sitting there going and it
Should've
was
backed
actually
out.
like the first interview that there was the one point that they had that interview, him and Obama sitting at the same place, sort of like all talking at the same time, and whatnot, and he literally looks like he's so out of his depth that he's just
Yeah.
kind of going there like,
Oh,
okay,
yeah.
cool, you know what?
let me
I'm just
let
going to
me
follow every single democratic rule here, never change anything because God knows I never wanted this in the first place.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and here's the deal. Like,
What am I doing here?
first of all, Obama is a lawyer, and how law school works in the U.S. is it's not like regular college. It's not regular university. Um, they have very, very high standards for like academics to even get in, and it's very rigorous, and it has a significant reputation for being merciless when you go to law school. And it basically, you show up the first day, and you've been given your syllabus like 6 weeks ago. Like, you have finished your first homework assignments for that day when you
Yeah.
show up the first day. Like, you have read your case books, and you are ready to argue your imaginary court cases day one. And your professors will do that to you. And they will, they just basically, it's like boot camp for lawyers. Like, you get to do that, and if you don't do it right, you get laughed at, or like people, like you get like torn apart by the opposing side in your argument, in your mock trial, etc. And so Obama coming in, sitting and smiling and saying, oh, well, and they had not talking down to him, not saying like, okay, so this is how passing a law works, which Trump probably doesn't know. He's never had a job. Like, he's never had a job. He's never worked a day in his life. Like, he's never accomplished anything. He's just been a vagrant his whole life. And so, now he's supposed to be running the country, and he's like, so Obama's like, well, because the reporters were like, well, he, basically said like, it was understood that he came in and he said, okay, well, you got this percent, annual income, and you got this percent, oil price, this rate of oil prices and this kind of thing. You got this kind of trade agreement. You got to negotiate. You got this, and that's why he looked scared shitless. It's because he's like, I thought people were going to hand it to me like they've handed me everything else in my life.
And they
And
kind of
and like the Republican Party didn't want to win either, because they are an opposition party only at this point. Like, they're a regional party. Like, the only way they win national elections is if people don't vote. Like, no, like, most of the coastal states will never vote for them. And so, like, there's nothing they can do. They can only exist as an opposition party. So now that they have power, they are the dog that caught the car.
and now what?
You make a very, very good point.
Right. So now what do? Because if you look at their policies, every single policy they have sounds great. Like, yeah, let's make the government less interfering in your lives. Let's strip out the regulations. Let's take away rights, from people you don't like. But that's every time you, like, oh, well, we're going to build a wall. But yeah, if you build that wall, like, and try to get Mexico to pay for it, Mexico's already said, go to hell. Like, we're not doing that.
Yeah. In so
And,
many words,
like,
the president actually said, "There's no chance we're going to pay for the fucking wall."
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
actually, he did say it in that word.
Yeah,
In so many
he
words.
did. Yeah,
Mhm.
and like, so for example, so now, instead of sitting around going, well, this is all fucking Obama's fault because, we weren't allowed to build our fucking wall like we wanted, now you can try. Now you can, oh, well, we're gonna, because, like, another thing they wanted was they were arguing for not using projections for how much things would cost. Like, they didn't want to use cost estimates for how much things it would
Really?
and for their budgeting. Yeah, like they
Why?
wanted to just be able to say, well, it's going to cost X, but the Congressional Budgeting Office was like, no, like, we have to do the math for you, because otherwise you'll just say it's going to cost nothing. And so, if they do that, turns out math still happens. And so,
Turns
like, if
out
they want to
money
cut
is a
taxes
finite
on,
resource.
Yeah, and so like it's one of those things where like now that they have, they don't know what they're going to do now that they've caught the car. Like they're like the Koch brothers, for example. Like the two, if you combine the Koch brothers, if there was just one of them, that guy, hypothetical guy, would be the richest man in America. So the Koch brothers, you'll notice they didn't spend a dime on Trump because they wanted him to lose. They endorsed Hillary early on. They said, "Oh, maybe she'll be better." Like they halfway endorsed her. And so why was that? Because they knew that having Trump in there is going to be what everyone remembers about the Republican Party for 20 years.
It's already
yeah,
scaring investors shitless.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
and
they've
like,
all pulled out.
it's all investors. Oh yeah, like, and honestly, like, and oh yeah, the market rebounded. I'm like, yeah, but fuck, like that's just because now they knew that we weren't going to have like a drawn out, not knowing who the president is thing, like who happened in 2000, like where it went on like a month, and we were still counting votes. Thanks, Florida. If you ever hear Americans be like, "God damn it, Florida,"
That's why.
like,
Yeah.
Florida's that's why, because Florida is like that one family member who like cannot get their shit sorted.
I, since we are a furry podcast,
Mm.
apparently Revax actually says, "Ich mach Trump nicht." I don't know what that means.
Oh. But anyway,
I do not
so
like
yeah.
Trump. Okay, great. I do actually have a salient point of conversation. I've actually like brought it up to you at one point.
Yes.
So a fur who is here in South Africa at one point had a long conversation with me about a whole bunch of things that I think to a large extent he wanted us to talk about it, and I guess I know that we've got about 20 minutes of this left, but maybe we can squeeze this down and just sort of like talk about it. So I mean, he obviously talks about this entire idea that there are furs who would be crawling up somebody who that he considers them to be nobodies and things like that because they're artists, where people are fawning over these people because they have a specific kind of drawing style, or they've been drawing for XYZ amount of time, or they've got a fursuit or anything like that. And what he believes is that it's not just this, apparently. It's just that it's the fact that we want people who are a lot more involved, I guess, so that we don't just become another fandom, for instance.
Well, I mean, let's unpack that a little bit. So, like, first of all, any time that you idolize someone, anytime that you have a celebrity, like, you're basically, like, worshiping them for some specific thing, like, and they're probably only okay. Like, I think Benedict Cumberbatch is great, but he probably is an alright guy. Like, he probably doesn't really have magic powers, magic cheekbones, Like, so, he does have magic cheekbones. But yeah, like, let's all stop and admire the alien beauty of Benedict Cumberbatch for a moment.
Yeah.
But like
the Kif-like features.
Yes, he's like the Fae. Oh, there the German one came up finally. Okay, good. I don't know why it delayed 2 minutes for me. Mein Gott, der Zeppelin. But yeah, so
Really?
yeah, this is the first German thing I could think of. So anyway, the like idea of a celebrity within the furry fandom is also kind of always been like very fluid. Like, I know it doesn't feel like that always to people who are like arriving, and have only been here a few years, but like I've been active in the fandom like as a writer for since 2009, and that's when I was first published, and in that time I've seen a lot of people who furries thought were eternal fade away, and a lot of other people pop up, and so like I mean I don't think that, but the like that's So that's always kind of going to be fluid. And then also, the furry fandom is the only fandom that is self-sustaining. Like,
Mm.
there, if Hasbro closed tomorrow, the My Little Pony fandom would peter out.
Eventually.
Eventually. If Star Trek, if they stop making Star Trek movies, like you'll notice that before these new Star Trek movies came out,
Mm-hmm.
Star Trek was fading out. Like, look at Stargate. Like, they stopped making Stargate stuff, and Stargate had its own conventions. Stargate had its own like fan events that people were organizing. It had its own like role-playing games, all kinds of stuff, and because they stopped making stuff, it went away. But the furry fandom is the only open source fandom.
No,
Like,
that's true.
the closest one I could ever think of, and I've given this some thought, the closest I can think of is the steampunk fandom, but that's more of like an aesthetic.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there are no rules really in steampunk. Like, there's this concept that it is, good steampunk is like, you could actually, there are reasons for these gears to be here. But
Yeah.
like, the idea with the furry fandom is like there's this whole constantly self-perpetuating, self-renewing culture, and if tomorrow you decided you wanted to write a story in the furry fandom or draw a picture in the furry fandom or make a song or whatever, you would have just as much of a claim to it as Adam Wan or Jay Naylor or Blotch or Kyle or anybody.
Mm.
And like, you are a Kyle Gold. You are a Heather Burton. Like, you are who do you young furries like these days? The guy who does all the animations, damn it. Jason Effects.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, those sorts of people, like, it seems a long time in internet time, but like, Blotch kind of has faded away because those two artists don't work together anymore. And so there is no more Blotch. Like, there's, there was a time where we just didn't see anything from Adam Wan for like several years.
Mm.
And like, just went away. And like, other people, like, Scappo. Scappo was super popular for a long time, and he's a great guy. If you guys ever want to get someone on the podcast, get Scappo sometime. He's a cool guy.
Have we? No. We had Pato, not Scappo, right? Pato.
Yeah, Scappo lives in. He's like got like dual Jamaican, UK citizenship or something.
Oh, nice.
So I only see him occasionally, but he like he was super popular. But he was talking to me one time, and he's like, I'm really frustrated because people just shoot past me. He's like, someone will strike some chord within the fandom, and they will suddenly be more popular than me and have more watchers. And I'm like, dude, don't even try not to think about it. Just do your own thing, because there's nothing for it. Like, that's just the nature of the fandom. Like, there are people who come out of nowhere and make more money than me. I'm, as a writer, living in a world of like 50 Shades of Grey. Like, someone just came in and put the right book out at the right time and made crazy amounts of money. And it's not like 50 Shades of Grey is better than my stuff. I think I could safely say, like, but it was the right book at the right time. And so don't worry, like, but that's kind of the fandom too. Like, there will always be people who come out of nowhere and are massively popular, and they might stick around for years, or they might be gone tomorrow. Like, that's the other thing too, is that everyone in the fandom is here on their free time, like when they are deciding to be here. And so if they leave, it's not like you can just call up your favorite artist and say, hey, even if as much as we feel like we know these people, like as much as you might feel like Adam Wan and what he likes and what he doesn't like and whatever, you don't know him. He's not actually your friend. He's not your friend. I'm sure he's whatever. I don't actually know. He's one of the few furry artists I've never actually met in person. But like, you don't know him. You can't email and be like, hey, what's going on? Why haven't you posted any like anatomically ambitious porn lately?
Ambitious.
Yeah.
And I make fun of him for that, but he's posted stuff making fun of himself on that front too. So anyway, like, that's what I say about it. Like, is there any? What are you guys kind of thinking about that whole point of?
I mean, I guess like maybe some people have a little bit of, what do you call it, wood to burn when it comes to being angry at these people. That
Furries
but
have so much wood.
I'm doing a lot more to help the fandom, but I'm not getting recognized for it and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it's not necessarily supposed to be a recognition thing, now is it? I don't necessarily see that as an issue in the first place. I mean, like, the thing is that, for instance, I mean, we have the podcast, and yeah, we're running on an international, furry radio station. Great stuff. It's absolutely amazing. The thing is that, and we wouldn't be here if we weren't given the chance to be here. But then again, like, at that same time, like, you can say that, we may not necessarily even be the best podcast out there. In fact, there's probably there's no way that we're the best like podcast out there to begin with. Like, it's amateur at best, as Doge actually says. And the thing is that, like, we just have fun with it. And yet some people sort of think that, oh, wow, these guys have this, we have the ability to talk to people, etc., etc. Yeah, we got the ability to talk to people. But the thing is that we kind of need to, what's the word? We need to ask people to be on the podcast with us. If they say no, I literally can't do anything about that.
Yeah.
And it's kind of weird in the fact that, like, people are going like, no, but you have the ability to do this. You have the ability to firstly talk about that.
Yeah, and believe me, I have sympathy for you as a podcaster, because there are people out there who say, well, I could make podcasts if I wanted. Like, I have a microphone.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, that's true.
Everyone can scream into the ether. I mean, everyone can do that, but it's not gonna change a thing, or it's not gonna mean anything if no one's there to listen.
Yeah, and like, here's the thing: if you guys ever feel like I'm talking to you and to you listeners. Like, if you ever feel like you shouldn't be doing your art because you are not as good as someone else, you feel like whether or not that's even objectively true, like you feel like it is, the woods would be very silent if only the best birds sang.
Yeah.
Like, if then plus, like, I have had the pleasure of working with a lot of artists in the furry fandom, and like, I think I told you this story one time. Like, there were two artists, and I've seen this a few times. This is just the example that keeps springing to my mind. Anna Kuro. I'll grab art as I say this. An artist named Anna Kuro, and there is her FA, and an artist named Funky One.
Oh yes, the Funky One's awesome. But like, we had him on here before.
Yeah. They were jealous of each other, and not even like in a cruel way. They were like, oh my god, I wish I could draw like the opposite. They both were literally at the same time having this conversation with me.
Oh, I need to delete this just immediately. I don't know. Yes, there's the button. Delete it. Yes. Okay. Sorry. I just put that in live chat on furry.fm. You should tell me when it's not safe for work.
Oh, I just put it in. I put it in first stream.
Yeah. No. I just thought that it was going to be not safe for. I mean, it was supposed to be like, safe for work stuff. And wow, was I wrong?
You were wrong. Okay. So you should probably open links you get from me before you decide if they are. Yeah, they're probably porn. Just let's play the odds. So, anyway, so these two artists, who are both very good, were at the same time, like literally the same moment, talking to me about how they feel like they are not as good as other artists. And I was like, oh, well, and I'm like, and artists say that, people feel like that. So I said, well, who do you feel like you're not as good as? And they listed each other in their lists of people. And I'm like, you do know I'm literally talking to that person right now, having that same conversation. And they talked to each other about it and were like, oh wow, I didn't know. And like they just admired the things that they weren't good at in each other's art. And some of those things were like style compromises, like, Funky One's art is kind of toony. Like, so you could actually it comes out looking smooth, it comes out looking really clean. And Anna Kuro's art, it comes out looking super detailed and like realistic and like so they were like wished that they could have that, but that was already a trade-off. Like, and you, person listening, have also made a trade-off, have made 1,000 trade-offs for what you are going to be good at. So like you have decided where to put your skill points, and you continue to decide that every day. So like you are putting your skill points in knowing how to use a computer, or knowing how to argue on the internet, or knowing how to make a drawing, or knowing how to play this game, or knowing how to comfort someone who's sad. Like, you are putting your skill points where you decide to put them.
Yeah.
And so don't feel like you can't talk to people, or like that people are superior to you, or that they have more right to the fandom than you, simply because they are more popular than you. And so anyway, that's kind of what that would be my response to that concept that person raised. Like, I mean, if you want to think of me as a popufur, you can. Like, am I?
Are you asking?
Am I a popufur? Like, am I one of the people he was talking about? Like, I'm not going to be offended either way.
I'm not even sure. Like, that's the thing. Like, I mean, I've been looking at this conversation a whole bunch of times, and I've been trying to figure it out. In that, I mean, like, and I know my own responses here. It's like, if there were suitors, wouldn't all portray the same old characteristics as the next, or anything like that. And that's kind of that's awkward to say, because I mean the thing is that, like, it's not that they portray the same things. It's just that everybody's influenced by everything else. It's like you saying that you weren't influenced by several different kinds of writers.
Yeah.
When you started out. In fact, like it's something that, as writers, for instance, that we're kind of semi-proud of, is that when somebody says, "Oh, but your work seems to be like a lot like this person's work," and you sit there going like, "Wow, that's actually, a great compliment," because, they were actually maybe childhood, sort of reads, like say Terry Pratchett, for instance. Or great poets out there, for instance. Like I mean, for instance, I say for instance so many times. Like, if I wanted to have a compliment for being a teacher, I would say that, or a lecturer, I would say that the biggest compliment for me would be Dead Poets Society. That for me is like the biggest compliment. Firstly, it's a student that actually knows what Dead Poets Society is and knows what the values are that are being given by that person. I live my life to a large extent in that way, that if somebody has these kinds of issues, that's where I want to be. So, I mean, removing intertextuality, and I use intertextuality a lot more broadly at this point, is that, like, there are influences out there. And it doesn't matter whether those influences are extremely apparent or not, because it just means that what's the word that I want to look for? You admire them to the point that you're able to or want to imitate or, do what's necessary. For instance, imitation is the biggest form of flattery, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. And like, even as a writer, like, there are so many like ways of doing things, like tools you can have in your toolbox, that there are like it doesn't matter if you steal from someone, you just need to steal from everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like that's research if you steal from everyone from all sorts of places.
Otherwise, it's plagiarism.
Yeah. So like anyway.
Yeah, no, there's a
But
book.
that's
There's a book sitting here on my nightstand that I'm browsing through again. It's called "Steal Like an Artist" by Austin Kleon,
Mhm.
and it essentially says that like there's that thing about like stealing from one person's plagiarism, stealing from many is like research.
Research.
That's like one of the first lines in this book, I think, and yeah, it's just all about like building up a portfolio and not being ashamed of what you find inspiring, or like what like looking up and admiring certain people, because that's how everyone starts. Any amount of ideas that you have, if you just refine them and like mix them and blend them with other ideas, you will eventually create an idea or like a style that is uniquely your own because of all the parts that you have
But-
owned. Sorry.
Yeah, like I don't know. There's another point that he talks about, this idea that people who are popufurs
Mhm.
have an arrogance about them, and I wanna disagree with that, like very very vehemently even. I mean, like you look at say just Sound Effects or um, who else? Kyle Gold, for instance. I mean, Kyle Gold, out of like all the writers that we've had on here as well, aside from you, Tempo, as well, is the fact that I mean, he walked away from one of the awards that he probably would have won for, I don't know, I don't even know how long he would have won it for. And yet, then you've got Rick Griffin, and now you could say that what he says is also arrogance, in that, you know, if you want it, you should come get it.
Mhm. No, I understand. I understand what you mean. It's not really. Yeah, arrogance isn't the right term.
No, arrogance isn't the right term. It's just, you know, at the end of the day, if you're going to win, then you're going to win. If you're not going to win, then, you know, keep trying.
Yeah. And so like, and I admire that like Kyle, for example, has said it will not, you know, any marginal benefit for me in winning more of a Coyote Award or well, he still wins Coyote or Urza Major Award because he's won like 5 Urza Major Awards or something. He's like, any benefit I would get would be so small at this point that I don't want to be in the running. Like I have removed myself from it, and you know, because he understands that the real point of those awards isn't to heap praise upon someone. The real point of those awards is to get people to read books they otherwise would not have read that are good. Because it's not like there is like the best book of the year and that is the book you need to read and don't worry about reading anything else because it's rubbish.
Yeah.
Like, you know, we don't. That's another. You know, I'm sure that like, you know, Stephen King or some, you know, other very very popular authors have said like, I don't want to win any more of these awards because that steals the opportunity from someone else.
Yeah.
And so I admire that. Like, I you know, someday I hope to be more popular than I am with my writing, and like I will say the same thing. Like, because then there is no point. Like it's just my ego at that point that benefits.
Yeah.
It's not actually anything practical because like in the furry fandom, like who hasn't heard of Kyle Gold? You know, who hasn't heard of, you know, whatever the top 10 people on popufur are right now? Let's find out. Is popufur online? That's the real question.
No, he isn't, and I'm not necessarily sure whether he would be listening to this, because, and there's my problem.
No, the website popufur.
Oh, I don't know about that, but yeah, there's a website, popufur.
Yeah, it just ranks the FA pages. popufur.com.
What?
Yeah. Oh, it's down. It's down, but here, like, I'm putting it in the chat right now, but this is popufur. It just aggregates like FA pages to see who
For,
has
like,
the most
hits
watches.
and... You've got to be kidding me.
Yeah,
This is a thing.
That's...
it's
What?
yep. It's down right now apparently, but let me see if I can find.
Loading here.
Let's see, Wikifur, popufur.com.
Oh, Wolfie Nail.
Oh, is Wolfie Nail at the top?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I finally loaded, eh? All right, let me go back.
Then Zausch, then Blotch, then Demicour, then Fisk, Horse 3, Mish, Jasonifex, Nars, and Twinkle Says in the top 10.
Yeah, and so Mish and like Twinkle Says, I haven't seen anything from them in a long time,
Long time.
Mish
Yeah.
is
and yet they're still up
yeah,
there.
Mish is on Patreon, so he is still around though.
Oh, okay, that's maybe why. But yeah, like, you know, I'm sure I'm like, I am somewhere in here. Let's see where I am. Tempo 321, because it won't let me change my username to not have have a 321, even though the old Tempo account got deleted. Not that I'm bitter.
I'm pretty sure you can check with someone who will help you out.
I've actually reached out to a couple of mods, and the response I have been getting for years is it's not in our like we don't have the structure to change it because that would necessitate having a user number or something that's different than your username. And we simply don't have that on FA.
So okay, so you're okay. That speaks to like a little bit of a bad database structure, but whatever.
So, but yeah, their algorithm that they use for this is interesting because like it's because it like basically there it went. Yeah, it didn't work when I tried to search for me. But anyway, the algorithm for this it's similar to like Google's like PageRank. So like the probability of someone finding that site. So it's like how many people like how many people watch it, and how many people that is the only thing they watch or whatever. Do famous people watch this person? Things like that, because it kind of is made to discount like, if you and your like 10 friends all watch each other, you're not going to get as much of a high ranking as, one popufur in this definition watching you.
Yeah, but the thing is that like again, like the idea of arrogance, like this idea of what is arrogance in that sort of sense? Like, are you being arrogant for saying that you're a relatively good writer, for instance? Am I being arrogant for saying that, we can at times be a relatively okay podcast? Is that arrogance, or is that just me just stating it as it is?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't feel like I am arrogant for saying that I'm a good writer. Like, I think that the evidence points to me being a good writer.
Mm. No, of course. Your some books, for instance, you're doing what's necessary.
Yeah, and so like, but that's and I know that authors are on a different scale than like Kyle and I have joked when we've been sitting around that we are on a different scale than artists in the fandom. So like, if you get 1/10 of as many watchers as a writer, that's just as good. So because like Kyle has like 1/10 as many watchers as like Jason FX or Blanche or someone like as someone who could break into the top 20 or 30 or whatever, and so like I am one of the most popular writers. Does that make me a popufur? Like,
what exactly? What defined popufur in that same sense?
right?
As well?
And that's kind of one of my problems with this like statement of like, well, all the popufurs are taking all the credit, while the people who do all the work don't get any credit. And I'm like, well, I don't understand like what you want. Like, how would you want that to change? Like,
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me of my responses to him as well. Like I've noted these responses. I just want to see now. You know, they ask, or he asks something along the lines of, different artists, etc., etc. And I say, doesn't that to grow into whatever they want to as well? Like, it's not to say that everybody's going to have the same. What's the word am I looking for? It's not like everybody's going to have the same kind of growth at any given point. An artist is an artist. An artist will work on their own style eventually. But the thing is that how do you start? You start by copying other people's art.
Yep.
Like, literally. Like, my sister spent something like 12, like five of her like sort of formation years, literally like copying the line art from Dragon Ball Z pictures. And eventually started doing her own stuff, started looking at how bodies should be formed and things like that, and eventually came up with her own style where she can draw Dragon Ball Z. She can do this. I remember you, Scratch, you and Jen Seng, that entire thing happened.
Totally.
Some people actually even, what's the word? They complained at you?
Maybe.
For Jen Seng's style?
I think it was specifically your sister, actually. But yeah.
Yeah, it was my sister. It was, but in that same sense, like, let me get back to this point here. Where did I go? Where am I? Why do I exist? Like the idea of individuality. Should it not be allowed in the fandom if everybody's just going to copy one another? It's not just about the artists, for instance. I mean, come on, we've had people on this. We've had you, Tempo, when you're creating games and like doing some of the most amazing things out there that I've seen. And like we had researcher from Canada. Is it Canada? It's not Canada.
Nuka,
yes. We had Nuka on as well. We had all of these, and so it's not to say that people, or we're not giving enough credit to the people who aren't, worthy of crediting or are worthy of crediting or anything like that, or we just have popufurs on. I mean, next week, for instance, we have a guy who's actually here from South Africa who has a publisher who's going to be published next year in, I think, Feb or Jan. And so it's all about exposure as well. I mean, Uldar Dragon was on our podcast 2 weeks ago, where he's a musician and he's starting to do his own thing. And I mean, like, it's about that kind of exposure all the time. I mean, I'd like to think that we had a hand in getting him to open up a SoundCloud page for the music that he's putting on there. And I'm oddly enough working with him right now in respect to getting a couple of like songs out, because I think that it's very important that he keeps doing what he needs to do, and that's always important. But the thing is that at the end of the day, if we're running a podcast or if we're doing this or if we're doing that, it's not for the fame or it's not for us. It's so that we can both have conversations with people who are popufurs, to get other people to hear them, even if they like. I mean, some people haven't heard of Kyle Gold before. Some people haven't heard of you before, Tempo, and it's possibly because they're just in different countries, or
they're in different like parts of the fandom. Like there are parts of the fandom where it's all based on music or something. Like the music furs, say, like, might all know about each other, but might not know about Blotch.
Or yeah, exactly. I mean, and like it's about just and it's not just people in the background. It's a good mix of both. At least that's what I think. I mean, we expose South African talent when and where we can, and when we can find people who are willing to speak to us, and like even if it's not even talent, I mean, like Leeward was on our on our podcast before, and Leeward at the time was actually very, very awesome. Like she was able to do things that we'd have actually liked to sort of expose as well. That there are people out there who are willing to help other people with certain psychological issues. And the only reason why we're able to help people with certain psychological issues is very specifically because, well, we can, because we have the experience, because we have the platform. It's not even just the platform. It's just, oh, your parents are going through a divorce. Well, my parents went through a divorce. And it was at the worst time of my life. What do you want to know? Like, should you hate this person? Probably not. Maybe you should actually rethink your life. That kind of stuff. Being able to do that is because we have the ability to do that. I mean, like, Tempo, you give writing classes, for goodness sakes. I mean, in any way possible, we do give back to whatever fandom or group of people that we've connected ourselves with. And I think the major arrogance here would be the fact that we believe that we're so far more different than any other fandom out there at times. That we would believe that we have to be more, we have to be more eccentric. We don't have to do anything. We can enjoy it whichever way we want to, if it's copying other people's art, so that we can actually get a good gain for what we have, and what we're able to do, versus, just fucking about in a fursuit that you bought from somebody else. Wonderful, great. Like you said, the fandom is self-sustaining as well, in the fact that we can actually actively contribute to other people's ability to live on a daily basis. We commission artwork because A, we like the person's art, and B, because we really do want to help these people get along in their day-to-day. I mean, you look at, say, Electrocat, for instance. She lives off of her artwork. In as much as Nanook lives off of his artwork, in as much as every single artist out there who has some modicum of ability eventually turns it into a business. And it's a small business where they're doing what they like doing. And that's important. It's the same thing with you. Obviously what do you call it? You subsidize with other work, but it's still writing work. It's still work that's important to you, and that's important. So, but like I said, it's arrogant to believe that we're different, or so far different. Yeah. Go.
Yeah. And so, like, all right. So, like, and honestly, I find it kind of amusing when people claim they have ownership of the fandom in some way. Like, I walked into a card game shop one time, and I was talking to the owner about Nordgard, the card game. And I'm like, well, if you wanted, I could send some down here and you could sell them, and however, we talked about how we'd break up the profits. And he's like, oh yeah, I was big in the furry fandom. I was a pillar of the community for a while there, before I kind of left. And I'm like, oh, what was your persona? Oh, I didn't really have a persona. Okay, well, what was your name that you went by? I never really, got a name. Okay. So you're lying. Like, you might feel that way, but you never actually, got that involved. So you're not really a pillar of the community. And, the funny thing is, there's no leader. Like, if aliens landed and they said, boy, we want to talk to these furries, where is their leader? Who would we direct them to?
Uncle Kage.
Maybe Uncle Kage. Uncle Kage would certainly say Uncle Kage.
Yeah. Fair enough.
I might say Uncle Kage, because I know that he would it depends on if the aliens have a sense of humor.
Yeah.
So, but, Kage doesn't, Kage can't, tell anyone what to do, though.
Yeah.
Kage does not tell you. Yeah, he can't tell you what is furry. Right, Kage can't say. Kage doesn't define or even try to define, and because I've met him and he seems like a good guy. He doesn't try to define what furry is. Like fur is just enjoying anthro things, and that's the only definition that really matters.
Mhm.
And so like Kage doesn't decide. Like Kage doesn't come and personally put his little it's a Kage faced stamp on each of my books to make sure that they can come out. Like so there's nothing like that in the fandom. Whereas like if you went to other fandoms, things are either canon or they're not.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
well, anyway, so there you go. I would say we have probably said we disagree with this person. Who said, oh well, it's the popufurs. I don't know. But I mean, I understand it. Like, it's frustrating to not be as popular, but like, I have friends, like I said, who are like, well, why do you get to be a writer? I had a friend come up to me in the fandom, like, and say, why do you get to go to Brazil? I'm like, well, they're paying me too, otherwise I wouldn't be able to go. Yeah, but why are they paying you? Why can't they like pay me for me to go? And I'm like, well, I was invited, and they don't know who you are, and so maybe you could do a bunch of stuff until they know who you are, and then they'll invite you to go to the con there.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, why is that fair? And and like it's just a furry conversation. It's a very furry conversation because like, well,
Yeah.
I mean, I can't, I'm just saying, like, because, like, I unpacked that for him and I said, like, well, even though I'm not sure that was what he wanted to hear, I think he just wanted me to go, yeah, that stinks. Boy, that's unfair. But, like, I unpacked that for him and I was like, well, I have put in the work to demonstrate to them that I have valuable things to do for them. Like, I have valuable ways to, like, entertain people and be nice and, like, be personable and
My brain
be...
source is worthwhile.
Right, like, and I'm gonna bring cool stuff for them. Like, oh, I brought, like, a whole bunch of swag from the US because they're kind of like you guys where they don't get a lot of the, like, little cool promo things. Like, they don't get, like, Zootopia posters. I'm sure that there are very few like, English language Zootopia posters in Brazil. Stuff like that. And so I made sure to bring cool stuff like that for them because, that was that was the service I was trading them. And I'm like, I told my friend, like, what would you have given them? And how would they have known you would do that? Like, what have you done previously to demonstrate that?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, it's not like my name was drawn out of a hat. Like, it's because he has had that a few times where he's said, oh, well, why is it fair that, like, you get to go and be on panels and whatever? I'm like, oh, you could be on a panel. Just go and contact whoever's setting up the panel track and tell them what you want to do a panel on and explain to them why.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to do that. Well,
So you want all the popularity, but not willing to go through all the work. Wonderful.
Yeah.
right, like, and like this is the same friend who, like, and he has some good redeeming qualities. He has a good heart. He just doesn't think about the things that he says.
Sorry, guys,
And so he's just like,
something back in the tick.
he's like,
No worries.
I was working on a project and I was working on a book, and he said, he read through it, and he had found a couple typos, and I said, oh, okay, cool. I put his name in the credits, and then he said, after I started getting money for it, he said, well, why am I not getting any of this money? And I said, well, because you didn't write it. You just went through and found, like, a handful of typos that one time, and no one else who did that is getting money. And, I'm like, I'm not making millions of dollars on this. What?
It's a labor of love.
Right. I'm like, I'm not, right. I was like, I will, if I paid you at the same rate that I pay myself, here's a pack of bubble gum for your time.
Yeah.
Like, and that's kind of how I feel when people say, like, oh, it's not fair. I'm like, well, yes, sometimes people just happen to be the right combination of different entertaining things and they become popular. But
yeah,
you know, like that's the fandom, and you should just do what makes you happy
Yeah.
in fandom. Like if making, and that's not to say everyone in the fandom has to be creative. Like as a
Or
writer, like I get that all the time. Like people are like, well, I feel, you know, I'm not a writer, so I'm not contributing stuff, so I might as well be a writer. Like I can't do art, so I'm going to be a writer. like, oh, like oh, I dabble in writing. I'm a writer. It's like saying I dabble in brain surgery. I'm a brain surgeon. Um, like, oh, well, that's
I
nice.
dabble in psychology. I'm
Yeah,
actually a psychologist, and you can
yeah,
pay me psychologist rates while I'm at it.
right. And like, so I understand that, but at the same time, like the furry fandom, like the bulk of the furry fandom is people who come in and have fun.
Yeah.
Like they come in and they have fun, and you know they spend money if they want to, but they have fun. They role play. They come up with kooky ideas for characters, and they tell artists they like their art or what they like or whatever. Like
Yeah.
that's the fandom.
I mean,
Like
there was this one. Sorry, there was we had Spazzy on, obviously, and there was this one point that her and Shia both actually said, like, there was this weird trend that people commissioned artists to become famous by proxy.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
I mean, like, only in the furry fandom, I guess.
It's
only,
sort of.
sorry, only in the furry fandom. What?
Uh,
Oh, I think you might have cut out.
com, com,
Just
yeah,
repeat that. Either.
commissioning. Hey, yes, commissioning famous artists so that they could by proxy become famous.
Yeah. And like Patreon has made that a little healthier because like Patreon sets up rules, you know, from outside the furry fandom in the furry fandom saying you can come in and give someone money, but that doesn't mean that you're famous. That means that you're being good to them. Like you're saying, I approve of what you're doing. So like that's how I view it when people buy my books. I'm not like you're not going to get famous because you bought my book. You know,
Yeah.
like that doesn't make you famous. That means that you're showing, oh, I support you. I have a little money, so I'm gonna spend it and buy your book. Like so that you can write more books. Like that's all that means. That's all that should ever mean. Like, but no, that's silly. Like, and whatever. Like, if I guess like if someone came in and spent, you know, $1 million paying artists and they want to get a little attention, I guess that's fine. But like, you know, like, is that bad? Is it better that they not come in and spend money? But like, I mean, I would rather have
Superman?
people have fun and have people, you know, make this an accepting place for everyone. Because if we define it by like money, there's no way. Like,
Yeah.
you know, furry's not that profitable.
No, it isn't. Although you can make a decent living off of it, you just can't, you know, become a billionaire. Because there just aren't enough furries.
Yeah. Oh, why do you think Disney like keeps churning out furry movies? Just
Disney.
to indoctrinate more people. Excuse me, just to like indoctrinate more furries, breed the next like generation of them.
Scratch. Yeah.
You keep cutting in and out.
Yeah, sorry, I sneezed.
Yeah.
I sneezed.
Okay.
I had to mute my mic.
Well, anyway, so yeah. But anyway, that's the state of my world right now.
Yeah.
Like I would say, you know, in closing, like any of you guys who are still unsettled by the election, like I said, go find ways to be kind to people and like to examine in yourselves, like I am, like what could I do? You know, how could I be encouraging of kindness and, you know, not, you know, indulging in easy and cynical things. You know, because that's really what the lesson is from here. Like, I was at did I tell you guys about the time I got evacuated from MFF a couple of years ago at the hotel in the middle of the night? Yeah.
Yeah.
And like it gave me sitting there in that hotel lobby when someone could come up at any time and tell me to get out. Um, and I would just have to stand outside in the cold for who knows how long. Like I would have no recourse. So like it gave me an empathy for homeless and refugee populations. Like now whenever I hear about people being homeless or I hear about people being refugees, I'm like that must be the most stressful thing. Like
Yeah.
that must be in addition to everything else, the idea that there is no place for you, like the idea that like no one cares is very stressful. So and so like and then when this happened, I was this election, I was like, guys, like a lot of us are like white males who have relatively stable incomes, can afford a computer.
Yeah.
We've probably never felt that oppressed and that scared, but there are people who do. Like there are trans people, there are minorities, there are women who do on a daily basis. So try to gain empathy with them. Try to make this a moment, like take ownership of this moment and like gain empathy for those people.
Yeah.
Because that's how we're going to win and turn this around. So anyway, are we about out of time?
Yeah, well, we've been out of time for a while, but it was good that we had that conversation. I think that I'll link this guy to this conversation, just given the relevant part where we started talking about this.
Now, if I may say my usual shameless plug,
Go
for it.
So there we go. There's my FA. Go to my FA, read all my free stories, and then
Buy all your other not free stories.
buy all my other stories. It'll be great.
Profit.
I'm releasing a novel-length Star Fox erotic fan fiction because I am a filthy furry,
Sorry.
and that's how it works in the furry fan. That's how we roll. So, I'm delighted to have been here. Thank you guys for having me back.
And we are delighted to have you here as always.
Yeah.
Cool.
And of course, I should probably say.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I should probably say thank you to Tempo, for being here. Yay. Sorry, he's also on the chat here. Tempo, yay, wonderful. Kinkinzade Black Get apparently was a person who was on here. And then on the other side, Mind, Wolful, Wolfie, sorry, Waldy, Rolino, Revax, did I say Mind? Advolf TVL was on here. Oddly enough, Advolf TVL is our guest for next week, or possibly next week. He hasn't confirmed yet. Don't make. I'm speaking ahead of myself already, but yeah, TVL Advolf is going to be one of our guests eventually. He's the writer that I was talking about a little bit earlier. Who, like I said, he's got like a publisher and everything like that going for his book, which is going to be amazing. Haven't read it yet, mostly because it hasn't been published yet. So we'll see how that goes. And might, I don't know, find a way to pull a tail somewhere along the way in trying to get it more exposure in that way, especially within our own fandom. But yeah, so he's been listening, and Tempo, once again, thanks so much for being on here. We really always appreciate you being on here. And I know that you didn't necessarily want to be on here because, well, something happened in the week that was awkward.
Well, and here's the
for
deal.
everyone.
Like, I am paid to sit around and think and write and talk. And if I can, by being on here, make even one person feel a little bit better and a little more hopeful and a little more determined to make things right, then it was worth the time. Like I will suffer through my own like discomfort at discussing these distasteful topics if it means that it improves the world a little bit.
And we appreciate that immensely.
Yeah. Sure, and I want to show you guys that not all Americans are assholes. I mean, well, we're assholes, but we mean well.
Not all Americans are high-functioning sociopaths.
Yes, right. We're all assholes, but I mean, we have most of us have a good heart. We're like Homer Simpson. So we mean well. We're just stupid because we
Yeah.
don't have perspective.
Some of
But it'll be okay. The fandom will endure, and the fandom is the furries are the future. Like, look at the furries. That is what the future looks like.
Oh God.
Hmm.
I kid.
Yeah.
Like, it's open, it's caring, it's bizarre, but it like that's what things are going to like long term look like is like the furry fandom.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Sorry. I'm thinking more on the minutia, but yeah, the general idea of it is that.
Yeah.
Your face is a minutia.
Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, I'll talk to you guys later.
No,
Thank
for
you
sure.
for listening.
Alrighty.
Yeah. Thanks
So,
everybody for listening.
Farewell. Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
bye. Oh yeah, and obviously those of you who are listening,
Music happens in a bit.
podcast music happens just now.
Cool. Alright. Cheers.
Bye. There goes
This is, like,
Tempo.
failed. Yeah.